Hey, Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I'm coming live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek, where the porcupines roam. And again, we are joined by Chas. Yay!
Everyone. I actually got a great video of a porcupine this week. I was thinking about you. I'll send it to you.
I was. I need to learn the sound effects,
Mm.
so then I can have sound effects. That's when I say Chas, it goes yay, and you hear all the applause.
Yeah, they're called hotkeys, and people who do audio should know that, and I should know them since I am in radio, but I do not. But I think that's the difference between those of us who are talkers and those of us who are technologically able. I just hope everything will turn out every time I turn them on.
You know, like I learn about these things, but then it's that part for me is connecting the dots for it, like, oh yeah, it's supposed to do this. Oh yeah, it's supposed to do that. And then so then that'll be my whole show is just saying, oh yeah, oh, oops, sorry.
It's been a I was thinking that it's been a crazy week, and it ended with another assassination attempt on our president, or shots fired apparently yesterday. But I think on TikTok folks are just really dragging the president because like he had no intention of going to his son's funeral anyway, and embarrassingly said he had some very important government business, and then here these shots fire out that are just like some random this guy's had more assassination attempts on his life and than any other president in modern times, and not one of them could actually do a job. So I think do the job. So I think that those are all like fake assassination attempts to create goodwill toward him. His numbers are so low right now. I don't think even the hardcore MAGA folks can really be saying he's doing a good job now.
Right. And then I was watching the Midas Touches podcast. And that lady's like really talking, and you just hear the gunshots. Then pretty soon she dies. It's like,
Isn't that
dang.
crazy?
And then you go read the comments, and everyone's like, yeah, and I lost 130 pounds in 6 months. Or, they're all just random, don't even care comments.
That's
Are
the
they
total.
comments?
That's the most hilarious point about it. Like everyone but MAGA like hates this guy, and we're all just like praying for his demise in so many ways. And yet for me too, like there's a part of it that like I just we need him here for the conversation, because as soon as he dies or gets killed or whatever, then they're going to try to martyr him, excuse me, and do whatever. But as he continues, we just keep getting more and more and more and more and more racist, and it's just coming straight out. And I wanted to I think that a lot of people don't understand racism in America, and I think it's because we're so propagandized that we think that we think of as Americans, even though we're Native Americans, and Black Americans are Black Americans, and the only real Americans are European Americans, even though they weren't from here. But I'm reading this great book right now about called the oh gosh the it's called the possessive. It's good right here. Look, a little bit of called the possessive investment in whiteness, and from white people profit from how white people profit from identity politics. Um, they do, and they created themselves, white people, as something to distinguish themselves from black folks, so they could have free slavery. But they before that they denied our humanity. So the very first step onto the United States, or to this land where they were conquering it, they denied our humanity, our ownership, our existence. So that if you think America is any better than Israel, you don't understand the history. And I think a lot of people are talking about, genocide now, which is great. And I'm glad that we're starting to have this conversation because it's happening it's happened not only in Gaza, but it's happening in Lebanon now with this new war in southern Lebanon. Southern Lebanon is starting to look like Gaza. And also, when you think about it, even the whiteness that has protected people now is gone. Because if you look at what happened with the flotilla this week, did you hear about that? About the third flotilla that came in? They had another one. The one of the people on it was the sister of the president of Ireland. And you know what they did? They raped some of those people. They tortured them. They raped, two or three of those European Spanish women who were on that flotilla. They, sexually assaulted numerous of them, but they actually raped one of their prisoners, one of their European prisoners. So it's like, now like there's no niceties anymore. It's like, white the pretending that we don't do this to our own. Oh yeah, they do, and they are doing it. And I think that they're able to do that because that's what they're doing in Los Angeles, right? That's what they're doing in Los Angeles right now. They have a private police. The ICE is, going, it's still in Minneapolis. They're going around just grabbing people off the streets, and everyone's acting like, business as usual. And so, but they're not really, because they're attacking, people of color in our progress. They're attacking the Voting Rights Act. If the Voting Rights Act didn't exist, if Black people didn't fight for that with their lives, the rest of us, people of the global majority here in America, would not have that. They wouldn't have never just given it to us. Those folks fought for it and lost their lives for it. And so we should be, as tribes, and I know I said this last week, we should be supporting them. We should be passing resolutions of support and attacking, I'm not attacking, but calling, I mean, I don't know, maybe attacking the senators who are just pushing this stuff through for the president with no recognition of, how far and how much we fought to get what we did. And I think here in South Dakota, we're kind of lulled into like not seeing it all the time. We're not seeing the violence, the political violence, and we're not, we're just stuck in our, everyday, poverty situation. And so we don't ever look beyond ourselves. And it's really hard for us to have empathy for other communities when we are so put upon, when things are so hard here, we attack each other so much. It's just been really, really difficult to progress when, not only do we have, capitalism and all that stuff upon us, but we have, white supremacy, and a lot of our people take on the characteristics of the oppressor, and we have to acknowledge that and work to change that, I think, in all of us in America, because we are so propagandized. And anyway, so I just think I'm just into this book about, the creation of whiteness. And, we know, that we just generally, everyone's our relative. And if our relative is gonna, punch us in the eye every time we see him, we're not gonna go visit that relative. We're just gonna stay away from him. We're not gonna go and, steal all his stuff. But we're not going to go visit. We're not going to be friendly. It's that's not what we're going to do. But when they are stealing our stuff, we got to step up, right? And we did step up, and we got ourselves a treaty, and then they broke the treaty, right? And so what we have to do now is sort of create in ourselves an oppressor-free environment, right? We got to heal the white supremacist in ourselves, and then start to choose things that are not about property, not about money, not about power. Everyone's always seeking all this stuff, and power corrupts. Power corrupts. Look what they're doing now. They're literally eating and raping little children. And why would you want to be that? If that's what they're doing at Mar-a-Lago, count me out. Count me out with the work on my face, first of all, but count me out of all of those activities. Those are not, anything that can do us good. I'll stop talking. I know I'm in a little bit of a rant, but someone said something yesterday that made so much sense to me about the patriarchy, about the white European patriarchy. It has eaten pretty much everyone it can, and now it's eating its own. Like the MAGA folks, now it's finally eating its own, and they're creating it's like a snake, capitalism and the patriarchy. It's like in white supremacy, a snake, and it's going around, and it's eating everything it can. All our resources are gone. Everything is gone everywhere. And now what are they going to be taking their energy from? I don't know. Like, what are they? How are they going to sit with all their money in a wasteland of a world that they've created?
Yeah, I think that we're like in this place of you like an odd unity. Thomas Massey lost his primary, and there's a lot of people mad about that. A lot of people mad about that. I think Trump might have underestimated, and I know they don't care. I know they don't care, and the billionaire class don't care, and the Zionists don't care. I understand that because they're so rich and wealthy that they don't have to care because they have enough money to sustain themselves. And
He
but
doesn't
I
care
don't
about
think,
his son. I mean, he doesn't care about his own son.
yeah,
Like, why do white people have kids when they don't even like them?
I know. And so you really think about, I mean, I've been watching some of that, like the um and then even people not even understanding where like I'm a progressive and I'll say if Thomas Massey ran for president of the United States in 2028, I'd vote for him. And people think he has the most horriblest whatevers, and I'm like, you know what? But he voted against Israel. You know what? But he voted, he did all of these things that we need to happen today in order for us to sustain ourselves again or to get back into our own life ways. Like he's done a lot of different things, even for the Epstein, pushing the Epstein files and doing all it. Like he politically committed political suicide or whatever doing that, but
Well,
he did it.
well, I mean, I actually don't believe that was a fair election. I think that there are so many more voters in his precinct. I think they've been rigging elections since 2016. I think in 2016 they rigged elections by influencing the internet with stuff like the Russiagate, all that stuff. But I think that Elon Musk knowing 4 hours before Donald Trump was declared the winner of this last election says a lot about our election integrity. And we can fight all we want, but I think that there's a rigged system happening here, and we don't hear about what happened in New York anymore. There was a bunch of voters. There was a whole precinct that like Kamala got like one vote or something. That was just so weird. Like that would never happen. But this has happened. And so it's hard because like when you know that stuff, how do you have any faith in the system when you know that they can just flip a button? Elon Musk can go into the satellite and change the numbers, and people, and that's why I agree with you a lot about Thomas Massey too. I think that he was a man of integrity, and look at John Thune. That dude's got no integrity. He's got no integrity at all. He's been sold himself and his political vote to Russia and Israel, and we know that, and everyone else in the GOP is just like, oh, he's such a great guy, he's so tall, and tall, and that's pretty much it. He's tall, but he's really a man of no integrity, and he's led the Republican Party in South Dakota. I was just started to become politically active when he first won in his Senate race. And before that, I feel like in a lot of ways the Republicans had integrity. I feel like they were actually out for just for the good of South Dakota, for the good of the citizens. And I feel like that they really honestly felt like that had some integrity. But Thune was a staffer for Larry Pressler before he became a senator. And so he was in Washington, D.C. He wanted to be the big dog in the pound up there. And so he knew how to do it. He got the money. He, was able to manipulate the system. He's like the kind of person that we should ban from Washington, D.C. in the future. Like, people like that who have spent their life, profiting off of, horrible policies and basically the destruction of the federal government. He should be shamed and hollered at everywhere he goes, not only for his policy on Gaza, but for, I did this before and I'm going to do it again, but because it's crazy number. The number of children killed in schools has increased 700% since he became the majority leader in 2004. So 700%, like that's an amazing number. He has been the leader of a time when it went from a place where we had children who felt safe in America, felt like they could prosper, and then he took them to a place where now all of our kids have anxiety, and their attention spans are it's like peanuts, and like there's no real investment in education, right? It's like we're just all building new prisons in South Dakota, and that's their legislative agenda, is just to hurt people, and with Jesus Christ as on their shoulder, and it's just ridiculous, and it's very farcical. It's like super, like they're just playing games, and they don't care.
Yeah, I think
I mean, I felt like Massey cared. I felt like he cared. That's what I think I think I agree with that. Like, I felt like he cared. He cared.
and even in the process, like people are, they'll go after Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm like, I could tell you myself from my own lived experience that my thinking has evolved about a lot of different things. And so I might have been like a hardcore Democrat, like everything Republican is bad, kind of thinking. But then I slowly had to learn myself, read, educate myself, and understand like how the Democrats, they don't like us either. We're just a tool that is used at election time. They could care less for Lakota people in the state of South Dakota, but what changed that was Tim Johnson. And we all know that. So now they know there's enough of us to impact and change election results in the state of South Dakota. So they work very hard to suppress our vote. I could tell you all of the things now in District 27, what we have to do, where we have to go to vote, all of the challenges that were faced prior to, when Tim Johnson was running and he got reelected by, and they saved Oglala Lakota County was the last one to bring in those votes. And so everyone was pretty,
Yeah.
yep, everybody was pretty much like conceding he lost or whatever. And come morning time, they found out he won.
Yeah.
And it was
Thune, if you remember, he ran against Thune.
Yep. Yep.
And then
so
Daschle got beat.
Yep. But then Daschle, that's his own darn fault. But this is the real interesting thing in South Dakota politics is Daschle was the majority leader on the Senate, and so the campaign thing that happened against Daschle was he got too big for his britches. He was no longer representing South Dakota. He was representing the Democratic Party. And so that's like, it's really crazy because now that's where Senator Thune is. He's the majority leader for the Republican Party in the Senate. And he's no longer representing South Dakota, because he has to, when you're in those types of leadership, you have to take on those issues that are bigger than your state. And so it's really interesting how those dynamics, kind of get conversed, because for the Democrats in the state of South Dakota, that was a horrible thing. You got too big for your britches, buddy. And now it's not, it's because now it's like in this whole ideological thought process that has occurred in South Dakota. Kristi Noem has done us in. The one thing I can say about Senator Rounds when he was Governor Rounds is he may not have done everything perfectly, but he put effort forward to make changes in education. Could he get the funding tied to a lot of that? No, but he was able to make some changes and even appointments, putting different people within the education department, so that. And then it was always really interesting, the people that, like, they were very scared, because I used to sit in those meetings. They were very scared of us, but they sat themselves in that center and they listened, and you could see the awkwardness in them and the worry and all of that stuff. But they sat there and listened and then said, okay, let's work on making these changes. So they made some rules, some education rules that started to change and benefit Native children in the state of South Dakota. So those things did happen, and I can attest to it because I was a part of that process and I watched it. I gave input. I might have helped in some places with standards and those kind of things. But I can say when it came to education, for at least those parts, I have a lot of respect for Mike Rounds, because he really did try to do something about it. Kristi Noem just undid all of it, all of that hard work, all of the blood, sweat, and tears that Native people put into leveling the playing field in the classroom, all went out. We were able to address the pipeline to prison conversation. We were able to address all of those things and make people think about it. Like, we were able to take those political divisors away, like the Republican and Democrat stuff, but we were able to talk about real issues that were affecting the classrooms. That's not so anymore, because we went all the way back. And right now, our current candidates, none of them are talking about the issues in the classroom, because they're all catering to the base. And the base wants to go back to before we were allowed to vote, before we were citizens, before any of those things. And that's where the base is for the Republican Party. And so everybody's catering to what the base wants. And so that's the demise. So we're getting hit in that big, beautiful bill. We're getting hit with, we're losing our funding. We're also getting hit because they want to dismantle the Department of Education with no clear idea or understanding of what happens to Indian education. They just want to do it, because they don't want, they want state control. And then our Bureau of Indian Affairs doesn't do shit. They're just a bunch of slapdogs or whatever. They do whatever they tell them to do. They're not out there trying to make the better for Indian education themselves. They're just saying, go to the states, go to the state governments, and they're going to tell you what to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They always pass the buck, but nothing nothing that matters is ever done by them for us, right? We need to, as Indian people, we have such an opportunity right now. And I always feel like so frustrated because our leaders are just so they narrow-minded. They don't see the whole picture of what's happening right now. I mean, the United States is at the lowest it's ever been. We have an opportunity now to create the Great Sioux Nation and step away from the values of Washechus. But we don't, because those values have been assimilated within our tribes. And so, a lot of people don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to, they want to continue the status quo. And, that's the status quo is some people get rich and some people are poor. And those people that are poor are going to be, their kids are going to be poor. And, as their health outcomes and it continues to go, they're starting to lose their minds right now. They did a study about how back in the day before technology came, but I think it was 2010 is when they started to use the machines and all that stuff in classroom education, and now the kids have worse outcomes. We don't care as a nation, a United States nation, about children. As a Lakota people, we put children in the center, and they're the future, and everything that we do depends on their safety, their comfort, their education, and their treatment. And now so often, we just see we're traumatized. See, it's complex post-traumatic syndrome happened to most of us before we were able to distinguish between good and bad, right? So we don't know the difference between good and bad. We listen to the authoritarian, to the person who is fearful, who is who is telling us what to do. We just listen and do what that says because we're so traumatized. We just do what everyone's always talking about how we have to do things the way we've always done it. Well, the way we've always done it is like with white supremacy and a hierarchy, and that's not the way the nature is. And I think that's why we're having this problem, and we are going to go through this challenge. We're going through this change right now, this amazing change as a society. I feel like it for real, and more of the younger women aren't putting up with and being trained to take up the patriarchy. They're being told to go off on their own. I don't know if you know about this that 6B movement in Korea. Have you ever heard of that? There's the women are doing
I think
this.
I did, but I can't remember. So.
Yeah, it's called a 4B movement, and it's like they're not gonna get married, they're not gonna have boyfriends, they're not gonna have kids. They don't believe in religion, and they don't believe in what was the other one? There's like six concepts of it, but these young women are just choosing not to be mothers because of all the unpaid labor. Women in our societies do all the work of maintaining all the goodness that comes in our society, comes from women right now. And we don't get paid for it. We don't get the recognition for it. And we don't get to, take credit for it. I was reading this morning that Memorial Day was started by Black folks. 3 years before Memorial Day came to be, the Black folks and I don't remember which city it was, but they had, it was during the Civil War. They had dug up the mass. They had taken the mass grave and individually buried every Union soldier that had died near them, and they honored it. And then they decorated the things, and they did a march for 3 years. Black people were doing that. They're calling it Decoration Day. And then a white man was like, "Oh, okay, well, let's call it Memorial Day." It's like, no one gets credit for the things that do it. And that's the way it is. It's like everyone, they Columbus all these ideas, like, "Oh, I discovered this." Well, no, this is how we've been doing it. And I think that it's, even if you notice, I don't know if you noticed that Ezra Klein, he's like a political guy, or I don't know, he's a writer or something, but his last book that he wrote was called Abundance. And it was all about how, you can that we can all just think abundantly, and then, things will be abundant. But these are also the people who are like, feeding us garbage, and making money off of it. So it's like you can say whatever you want, but the truth is a lot different. And, you can point to history and say that, the people of the global majority have been making things better. And then white people coming in and like, colonizing it, and it loses its structure. Excuse me, I feel like the future of the young people, they're not accepting that. They've been growing up under the opportunity to go to therapy. They've been taught, mental health and mental, illness. A lot of our people in the United States are mentally ill. Racism is a mental illness, and authoritarian violence, domestic violence in the home create children who have low self-esteem, and children who will listen, who will not challenge people who are saying things that are opposite of what they feel is right? So they want people to have low self, but they don't want, I mean, it just is, the system is. I don't think anyone really wants the system of patriarchy and colonialism, but it is what it is. And what it does is it destroys you, destroys your spirit, and it destroys your energy, and it destroys your heart. You have to harden yourself to all kinds of horrible things. I have to harden myself every day to these videos that were coming out of Gaza, not so many anymore, but also, the videos and the testimony of the kids that are locked up in the Dilley detention center, also, the kids that are locked up at Pennington County Jail. There's everywhere you look, there's a place where, people who disagree are kept. And eventually, is it going to be all of us? Are we all going to be like in this place where, people, I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I feel like this authoritarian violence and this crackdown on speech and ideas is going to be a bad, it's a bad move. And you can't lock down dissent, and you can't make people who have a heart, get rid of it. We're always going to have empathy, and we're always going to want a better world. And but I'm different. I'm a lot different than my sisters, and they have different perspectives, and we came out of the same house, and our response to our personal domestic violence was different. And so that's how you can see how throughout the country, because most of these homes are the same way. That's why we have so many people who are willing to just, okay, let's just, why are we talking about this? I was always the one that got in trouble, because I was always like, well, hey now, Dad, why are you being crazy? I'm always like, calling him out for being crazy. And because that's not right. It's not right for him to take out his anger. He didn't have any, other tools, right? Our parents didn't have any tools to become better human beings, because they were raised by the priests and the nuns a lot of times, and those people were horrible. I saw another video of a mom who had a biracial son, and she was calling him the N-word with a hard R. And I was like, holy crap, like how can you have a child and still have those feelings? A lot of people do. And so that's why I think that racism is like our number one challenge as citizens, as evolved people in this country. Like we have to attack our own white supremacy, and then we have to dismantle it. And we have to dismantle our own patriarchy. We have to we have to do those things. We have to do that work. And a lot of people don't do that work. They just jump on Facebook and, talk around and, give really nice prayers, eagles flying by and, all this stuff. Like, it's just sort of a farce. And then we follow those people. We think those people are, quality individuals, and they turn out to be hanging out down at the bar and are just, Indian for Facebook. and that's about it. And the rest of the time, they're Washichus. Because guess what? We can be good Washichus. We know how to do that. We can be meaner than them. Hello, they taught us, and we're smart. So if we want to be mean and do all that kind of stuff, we can do that. But that's not our way. We're not like that. We're just like, just trying to get along, not trying to make enemies, just trying to live. And that's a hard thing. And a lot of people don't want to accept that about those systems that have been embedded in our spirits, in our communities. And if they don't go through that and get help, they're not thinking like Lakotas. And I want to emphasize that, because our ways never harm children. Our ways would never, support Joe Biden in his administration. Like, those are not, those are not our ways. Those are their ways that we have been, beaten into, submissive, compliance, right? Some of us anyway. We can't get us
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of lack of, I don't want to say lack of care, because they put us in this situation where we're the rats in the race, right? Like, we're just constantly, and we're trying, and some people are way behind on this. And so their struggle is a lot more, than to even care about what is happening. And so when you don't even have like they used to look to have a healthy middle class, right? So that healthy middle class was what was kind of the thing that balanced out everything. Well, we don't have a middle class anymore. So they're rapidly undoing that. And so those that are in like, for those of us that have lived in poverty, grew up in poverty, we just are like, okay, well, we're gonna have to buckle down. We're probably gonna have to figure some things out. That's what I've been doing. And talk to other people, like, we're probably, you're gonna have to think about this. And talking to even tribal leaders, saying you should be promoting, gardens, and you should be promoting things so that our people can survive through this. Because if we don't have a commod house, if we don't have EBT, if we don't have those things are going to be really hard. And then if we don't have gas to go get those things, so everything is a buyer's market. And we have it's been spent for a long time on us to change who we are, to assimilate us into the system that is now failing rapidly. And so what's going to end up happening? And it isn't, like, for us, we're probably more than likely the people that make it through it, because we've already lost everything. Like, we're already at the bottom. So we figured out how to survive without food, eating every day or whatever. We've learned how to do that. We've learned how to just get by. So there's a whole millions and millions of people who were in this place called the middle class, and now they're feeling it, because they're losing all of their stuff. And they're going to lose their homes that they invested in, their homes, and all of these things. And we're all over here, living the way we're living. Like, we don't have big mansions. We don't have, we're barely surviving in HUD housing,
Yeah.
And some people don't even have HUD housing. I don't live in HUD housing. I live in a recycled trailer house. That's what I live in. And you don't live in HUD housing. You're living pretty much the same way, living and just trying to do the best and live off the land and those things. So we have been forced to figure those things out. How do we survive it? There's, whenever the Great Depression came and all of those things, there was a lot of people who unalived themselves. There was massive amounts of that. Men who just couldn't imagine, you know, the situation. And so then that's what they did in leaving behind children and wives that then had to figure out how to fend for themselves because their husbands were all, you know, doing this and stuff. And so today we are not only dealing with the decline of the middle class and the possibilities of all of that happening, but we're also in our own tribal communities dealing with our children who don't want to be here anymore either. And so like there's things like that that we like what you're talking about. We need to help build get tools and some toolboxes so people can learn to help each other, learn to cope, learn to be better parents, be better humans, be better relatives, be better whatevers, and be better frenemies. Hey.
Yeah. Well, yes, because look at our councils. You know, our councils are full of people who are just saying rugged stuff to each other, and they come in there and it's just like, wow, like, you know, is this how we want our children to be? Because they are gonna be, they are like that. You know, they totally are like that. Like we are, the children are exactly the way our parents are. You know, they are, and we like to pretend like our damage isn't carrying on. It is. If you don't deal from the domestic violence or the trauma that happened to you, you perpetrate it, and people don't take responsibility. We have no accountability for people. People will, you know, bite someone's head off and never apologize and never say, hey, you know, I'm sorry, I was in a bad mood or whatever. You know, I don't I always do that. You know, when I hurt someone or I hurt someone's feelings or whatever, you know, I take accountability. But people will blame you for stuff that you don't even know, like, or stuff that you say. Like that's what happens to me a lot of times. I'll say something that'll like rock someone's mind about white supremacy or something, and they'll identify with that, and then they'll hate me because they think that I, you know, am aligning them with that. I think that that's how they are. And I'm just pointing out facts. And people, if they identify with those facts, that's on them, and that's on them to figure it out. And I don't judge people for what they don't know. And that's a really it's a really hard thing, because you think that everyone should know how to treat each other. You think that everyone should know that when you go out in public, you know, you're not snapping people off, and you're not, you know, trying to create, you know, animosity. You don't do that. You try to, you know, to go about your business, take care of your stuff. You know, you're not making, you know, everyone else. But people aren't taught that anymore. People are taught, you know, you get in front of so and so, and if you don't get it, you don't argue. If you don't yell at so and so, you're not going to get anything. And the amount of times that, you know, our tribal leaders are bombarded with, you know, just angry people who are angry because of a situation that, you know, maybe their nephew created or someone else created, but they can't do anything because, you know, what can they do? They're an elder. They never had any tools. They never had any tools. We don't have any tools. I was on a board of the Restorative Justice Center out in the Black Hills back in the day. And I went through this really great training about, you know, about how to listen and how to, you know, just really sit without judging other people. We have no idea what anyone else is going through. We have no idea what burdens they're carrying. We have no idea, you know, any kind of you know, how they were raised. And so it's really hard for us to just assume, well, a lot of people just assume that everyone has the same tools that they had, and they should be able to do it like this. And that's why a lot of people on the res will get mad at so and so for being a drunk or whatever. Well, they weren't raised like that. Well, guess what? Maybe you were raised in a different way. You got the love and care that you needed in order to build your self-esteem, so you didn't end up to be an addict. But we have so many people on the res right now who have very low self-esteem, who think they're not worthy, who think that they deserve to get hit. So many, I mean, that's that cycle. When you create trauma in kids, you create that cycle, and that cycle continues. And if they don't get any healing, and we don't prioritize healing as a community, then nothing's ever going to change. And I think, and a lot of times we put our men, mostly because they're our leaders, out there, and and it's an impossible situation for them to be out in front of. And I wouldn't want to. Leadership is a burden, and you know that you've had leadership. Leadership is a burden, and if you don't understand that, you shouldn't be seeking it, right? And a lot of people seek power, and they want that. I could do better. I could do better. No, 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 no. You do not understand what it's like to be in leadership, and if you think you can do better, you probably won't, because we're dealing with broken people, broken systems, broken institutions, and how can you can't really put lipstick on a pig at all. It's still a pig, right? It's still, and not to denigrate pigs. I like pigs; they seem smart, but we can't. We have to deal in truth, and
Pigs are
that's
savages.
yeah. Yeah, it was like, what, that's the truth. We have to deal in truth. And a lot of people talk in dreams, like a dream world, like you can do these things. Like we all were raised with the same values, and we all have the same understanding of what it means to be Lakota. And so many of us don't anymore. Anyway, okay.
I think I had to, I was muted. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Because if you didn't say anything, you know me, I just would have gone on again. So
Well, I think one of the things about life on the reservation is we just deal with what is in front of us. And that's how I feel. I just deal with the things that are in front of me, and then I try to get through them. And then the best practice that I can have is to model, right? So to model being a good relative, to model doing all of those things. And so that's that's where I'm at in my life. And the hardest part for me right now is like getting, like I'm not done grieving my mother. I don't know if I'll ever be done grieving my mother, but every day I have a hard time. It's a struggle for me because I want to call her and tell her about something. When I'd come home from work, I would go to her house and sit with her, and she'd say, "Come eat, come eat. I made some soup," or "Come eat, I made some bread," or "Come eat," or "Come visit me." Or even when she's mad at me, she'll call me up on that phone and she'll um just say something and hang up, because she's mad at me and I know I'm in trouble, and stuff. But it's just that for me is like I'm trying to figure out how do I continue to walk on this earth without my mother, and then realizing now the the transition in my family. So I'm I'm a grandmother, and so I'm in that place that my grandmother was in and the place my mother was in. So I have my children and my grandchildren, and then looking at all of that, like what now, the responsibility for me to lead, the responsibility is greater now, because I now understand, like my mom's chewing everybody out, when you're not acting right. And people would tell my mom, like her grandchildren are doing something out there, and my mom would be on that. She'd be talking to us as parents, and she'd be getting after her grandkids. Like, that's not what you do. I didn't raise people like this. And so for people, like now we're in this society where we watch Chinko, and like we say, I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to um put up with that kind of criticism or judgment, and then we distance. So we have a lot of people that will distance like that because they don't want to correct their behavior. And so then the divides in families, really start to take place. And so I witnessed a lot of that stuff. And so I think about even with my own kids, like this is how it is. And I didn't raise you guys that way. So we'll struggle through consequences together. And because that's how we learn. We learn through making mistakes. And I made a whole bunch of them.
That's right. That's right. I just want to say that two things. My dad's been gone for 25 years, and I miss him, and I cry for him still. And it's never it. But I also have a really, I think, a really tangible relationship with him in the spirit world, and it happens through like. I always find these stone hearts whenever I'm walking or I'm thinking about him or whatever. So I always have this communication with him. And the second thing I wanted to say was I was reading this book the other day about a guy who had gotten I forget, it was probably multiple sclerosis, I think, and he met someone and someone said you should go to the indigenous Australians. They have some kind of thing that could help you. And so he was like, what, but he didn't know anything, whatever. But something in him said, I should go. So he went, and he was sitting, visiting with these people in the heart of the center of Australia. And he was sitting, visiting with these people, and a woman came up and said, oh yeah, we were expecting you. We knew you were coming. About 3 months ago, we knew you were going to come. And he was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, we knew you were coming. And so he sat around visiting, and then one of them said something about they heard it in the stars. And he said, what? You hear the stars? And they were like, they all laughed like it was funny, like of course we hear the stars. And then he was like, well, I don't, and we don't, he said. And they were like, at first thought that he was joking. So what? You don't hear the stars? What do you mean? What do you mean? And then when they realized that he was telling the truth, and that he actually could not hear the stars that they could hear, they felt bad for him, and they said, that one of them started crying. He said because he was so shocked that people grow up without even being able to hear these beautiful things that they've grown up with, and they know all the time. They have this thing called the dreaming and dream time. It's like the subconscious. They go into the subconscious. And he said while he was there, the 3 or 4 of the elderly people would all of a sudden go into like a not a trance, but they were just like sort of meditating quietly, or not quietly, obviously meditate quietly, but they weren't saying anything. And then they would all know the same thing. And they were like talking to each other with their minds. And, as people, we have so many more powers that they have never told us about. And they don't tell us these things because they would give us self-esteem, right? Like we can heal ourselves, we can meditate. There's a way that you can hum that will help your sinuses. If you hum for 3 minutes, it creates nitric oxide in your sinuses, and that's a healing gas. You can create that medicine for yourself through humming, through vibration, through all of these things. And they always tell you that the sun is bad for you, gives you cancer, but then we prayed to the sun, and the sun is our salvation and all this stuff. And so like all of the things that we have been told about ourselves isn't true. We could be hearing the stars if we were able to rid ourselves of the systems of oppression that they have put on our everyday identities, right? They've created human resources. Like I even hate that word. Like we're used as resources. Like we're not all resources. We're just a part of the singing stars, right? Like that's just a part of us. And I think that we lose so much when we just see things through the framework of the settlers, right?
Yeah, I think there was this challenge a few years ago on TikTok, and you take your phone and you zoom into the sun, or not zoom in, but you focus it on the sun, and you push record for like 60 seconds or something like that. And then you stop and you play it back, and the sun talks to you through your phone.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, I haven't done that yet.
And so I can't remember what mine did. It said something. And so it's like, oh, cool. But I think that's so there's an article out about like the Abrahamic religions, and one of the things that they talk about in this article is like the about Satan and the evil, like this is all predictable things, that where Satan is, and how through the Abrahamic belief systems we're at this place. And so going and creating, so everybody, all this billionaire class that's ruling the whole world, they're a part of this Satan group, and what they're doing. And so the Catholic Church, the Pope has summoned all of the bishop people or priests to start studying exorcism. And so because there's so much evil, and they talk about just how it overtakes your body and so forth, and so they're doing this. And so they're going to bring back, or they're working on the practice of exorcism, because they're very fully well aware of what is happening. And so in all of this stuff that they're talking about is that through the Abrahamic belief system, they have lost the way to identify the evilness that's happening, because they frame it in a certain way. And so then they talk about like Native American people, the indigenous people of this continent, still know how to identify it. They still have connection to it, and they know what it is, and they know all of these different things about it, and they know how to protect their families, or their, the people or whatever. Anyway, so I was reading about this, and then there's some indigenous people in Africa and Australia that still have this language. They still know how to identify and call it what it is. And everybody else is kind of forgotten or whatever, and so they don't know, and they're kind of struggling, like trying to describe what this is that we're going through. And anyway, so I thought that was really interesting, like what you're saying, being able to hear the stars, because in our belief system, we say we come from them. We come from them, and we're made of them. We're made of the stardust. And so that's all scientifically true, right? Like we are made of stardust. Everything's made of stardust. That's why we're all related.
And I've been thinking about the us coming from Wind Cave too. Like if there was a flood before, yeah, right, we would have been hanging out down at Wind Cave. That's where we were, in the caves. There's thousands of miles of caves in the Black Hills that we haven't even discovered, and they don't even go down there. So I think that, there's some kind of truth in all of our myths in a way, and it's not like, accurate down to the whatever. It's a myth, but we're, as indigenous people, a lot more comfortable with the great mystery than the people who have to classify everything into, into class, sex, and whatever. Like the white supremacy is known for categorizing everyone and putting everyone in, oh, you're trans, you're this, you're that, and you don't belong, so everyone has its own little place. And that's not the way nature works. That's not the way, anything works. We're all in relationship to our surroundings. and that's quantum physics. And we're really understanding quantum physics now on a different level, and it's confirming a Lakota ideology, right? That we are all connected, that all of that stuff. And so, I believe in protecting your energy and not going in, to places where people are gonna, I quit going on crowds a lot of times. I don't like to do that kind of stuff, like concerts and all that stuff. Like that stuff doesn't appeal to me anymore, just because of all the negative energy and you know what, you brought up the spirits, and the Muslim people, Islam people, they believe in the jinns, right? They have those jinns, and those are like little demons and stuff that are supposed to be running around. I mean, we have that belief too. And I honestly do believe that cabal that's running everything, the CIA, the banks, and the IDF, all of the intelligence people, and the super wealthy, those people are doing horrible things, and are probably horrible people, and we shouldn't be doing what they say, and we shouldn't emulate them in any way. So because if you're a billionaire, you're an unethical person, because there's no reason why you should have to be a billionaire. And the way Oprah and and even Beyonce, and I don't mean to be attacking Beyonce, anyone, but Jay-Z definitely, he was with Diddy, and I've been I'm on the Michael Jackson side of things. Like, I think that he was killed. I think Israel killed him. I really do. I think that he was starting to say things about Palestine, and he was becoming uncontrollable. And I think that they killed him, and I think they've killed a lot of people. And I also wanted to say too that there was and I don't remember her name. I'm gonna remember it. I'm gonna post about it later. But there's a woman who did a documentary, who I think it might have won some awards, but she was from Palestine, and she was killed, I think, over the weekend, and her family, they were killed. So they targeted her whole family. So Israel targets people who speak out against it, and they target ideas that would make the world better. And when you think about it, they're creating our textbooks. So if people understand what we're going through in America, it's because we're propagandized from birth to now. I mean, from the very beginning, they create our textbooks. They create this idea that they have a right to this land. I even thought that for a long time. Like, I was like, oh yeah, Israel gotta protect the Jews. And but they used the Jewish faith to do these things. There's a lot of Jewish people who were not in support of that. And I actually just started reading a book called it's called Where We Live Is Our Country. And it's about Jewish people who are involved in worker movements, and then out of those unrest that happened in the late 1800s, that came Zionism, right? And so Zionism was a solution created by businessmen, right, and who wanted to be able to have a place where Jewish people could live. There's an idea. The idea behind it is great, because if you look at Jewish history, they were like attacked and kicked out of all major cities in Europe throughout the history of time. There's not one place that I ever saw that they didn't have a pogrom, which is a killing of Jewish people. These things happened. But now what's happening is that European Jews who converted to Judaism, right, because they're Europeans, are now killing the genetic Jewish ancestors, so who became Muslim in the 10th century, right? Like, that's total history. So now the Jewish people are killing their ancestors. and the people who have been, holding on to that land for millennia, like this is what's happening, and we're supporting it. And it's just crazy. I know that Thomas Massey lost, but also there's a big primary happening in St. Louis with Cori Bush. I don't know if you know about that. She's running again. She was in the House and then they beat her, and now she's running again. And Jasmine Crockett, I just want to say this publicly. Jasmine Crockett came out to campaign for Wesley Bell, the guy who's running against Cori Bush. Why? Israel. Israel, Israel, Israel. So, I just want everyone to know that, that Black people, that Native people, Asian people, all of them can be Zionists, and Zionists are racists. So our people can be racist too. We don't have the power, so we can't really be racist to white people, but we sure as heck can be racist to our other people. So we can be racist to our people a lot. And so I just, I think that we can say that educating our people is what's necessary, but really, we just need to start, really embracing our values and living every day like Lakotas and being good people, and then life will get better. I think I really do. I feel like we're on the tail end of all this colonization stuff. So I do.
Yep. And I'd say that too. Like we have our very own, the 3 native people that sit in Congress right now. One's from Oklahoma, I think is Choctaw, Zionist. I forget his name. And then you have and I'm gonna forget her name too, but
Oh,
she is
the one from Kansas, the Sharice.
yeah, Sharice David. She's a Zionist.
She's a
And then
Zionist.
yep, and the one up in Alaska that's running again. She's a
She's a
Zionist.
Zionist?
Yep.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh, I
they're
didn't know.
Zionists, and there is a guy that posted about like being proud, like all this stuff about them, and I'm like, yeah, too bad they're Zionists, and so then he's trying to get, oh, I said too bad they're Zionists and they support the genocide of the Palestinian people, the mass murdering of children. And so he said, that's your opinion. So I said, that's fact. I have my documentation in order. Like I've asked them and they've told me they stand with Israel. And so I know. And so just because they're native doesn't mean that they're, and Sharice, I personally know her, so I was really disappointed. Like she won't even respond to me, but she gives out these really whatever statements. And then
Well, and I
I
noticed that.
used to be like in Facebook, we were friends, and like I helped her campaign. I paid for, I sent money for her campaign, contributed to her and all of that, and then I became blocked. And so it's just like, well, that's you. I don't care. You don't care.
Well,
I don't care.
I saw that Indian Collective gave her a bunch of money too when they had a pack. She got a bunch of money from them. And I don't know if they got, still have that pack or what happened to it, but she did get a bunch of money from them.
Remember, Trump started changing that, like you can't. So I didn't know how that's going to affect like the NRA and those organizations that have political PACs, nonprofit political PACs. So I don't know how that all works now under Trump, but he was out after that. Remember, you're going to become considered a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, when you're doing it for Biden, but when they're doing it for Trump, it's okay. So yeah, I mean they don't, there's no laws. But I do think that, money, you got to follow the money. And if you follow the money will show you who the Zionists are. And it's too bad. It's really too
They
bad.
have an APAC tracker too. You can just go online and Google APAC tracker, and it's going to tell you how much money they're all getting from Israel.
But they're not using APAC anymore too. They're using this J Street and they're using other JPAC. They're doing other like different organizations because they all know that APAC is they're smart. They're smart. They're doing they're keeping their name out of it. And but the system is so broken right now. Anyone can buy us. I mean, obviously, with Russia putting all this money in and the fact that Israel is putting so much money into our politics is actually so hilarious when you think about it. They're probably just putting our money that they got from us back into our system. Like they're
That's
probably
what's happening. It's laundering. It's money laundering.
it's money. It
And then
totally is.
the other thing about that is if we would just get that money out of our politics, then we wouldn't have to worry about China interfering
Right.
in our elections. We wouldn't have to worry about Russia interfering in our elections. We wouldn't have to worry about Israel, anybody interfering in our elections because big money is out. And then it's just, people who care about the government and care about, the people, like that, those would be the ones getting elected.
Yep.
I hope Cory Bush wins. I know they're out after Ro Khanna now too, and so
Yeah.
it's just like whether or not we're able to sustain those hits. But I think it's also because those machines are fixed, and so people were pushing Thomas Massey to do a hand count of the
Yeah.
ballot because there were more people who voted in this primary election that ever voted in any of their primary elections. And
That's
so
right.
it was like 150,000 more people were involved in this election. So were they bot elections? You know what I mean? BOT, bots, voting. And then how do you justify like he lost by 10,000 votes? But if those are not real people voting, how they were saying about immigrants voting or like how we're being all corrupt in voting and stuff, while they've created bots now. And
Yeah.
so there's bots out there on the internet, they're giving propaganda and they're able to establish themselves in profiles and so forth as bots. And so they're going to be able to, and it sounds like they are able to do that in elections as well now. So we don't
Yeah.
ever have to even go vote people because our bots will just show up and vote. And we're not even nothing. And then before we close out, Chas, I wanted to say too, like if we don't need these big data centers, I've been reading up on different things like if AI was not used for surveillance, do we still need these big data centers? And there's a lot of articles, a lot of research out there that says no. So whenever they talk to you about using chat, whatever chat AI you're using, when they talk to you about that, and then they say it's because you're using AI. No, it's because the tech people are using AI for surveillance. That's why they need all of the data centers because there's no way to make one great big giant data center that gets all the information for everybody in the world. So you have to make all of these data centers all over so they link information because everything's surveillance now. So your cars are going to be surveillanced. So they track us already. They can, because we have Navigator, those GPS units in our car, and then we're all lazy because we don't want to buy a regular map and map out our process. We just enter in the coordinates on our phones. We do the same thing with Google Maps, Apple Maps, whoever maps and it tells us, and then we have AI saying, turn now, turn in a mile, things like that. And so that is more. So before it was just a certain amount of people, now it's going to be everybody. So that's why they need all of these data centers. And the data centers are going to destroy our water and our environment. They give out frequency. They do all of these different things that aren't just harmful for human beings, they're harmful for all life. And so those are a lot of the things that we need to be understanding and conversing about. It isn't that you're on chat and you're asking chat to help you with your schedule. It isn't you because you're on and you're in your AI asking it to help you analyze some data. It isn't that what's causing these problems. The problem. Oh, go ahead.
I totally agree, and I think that they're creating a surveillance system, a grid across the country so that they can control everything that we do. We can disconnect our like 2015 I got to pick up a Chevy Silverado. I was watching. You can disconnect that from the internet, but you can't use Bluetooth because the pickup will try to use your Bluetooth to report to OnStar. So like it's crazy. They can shut us down right now, however they want. And we are just like, innocent little consumers here. And I do blame it was during the Barack Obama did that, he did that crush it cars. Remember, he said, turn in your cars and we'll give, for a tax rebate or something. And so they got rid of all those cars that weren't connected to the internet. And so now you can't even find any of those old clunkers. And so the whole car market is
It's in
messed
the
up.
res junkyards.
That's right. They're all running around here. But I do think that, not only that, our TVs, our phones, everything is connected. They're watching us all the time. If you don't think that they are, you're not informed. They're listening to us all the time, even when your phone is turned off. I've been thinking about getting one of those Faraday
Yeah,
things.
me too. I'm gonna put it on my TV too.
Yeah, but also like it doesn't matter because if you put the Faraday around your phone, your TV is going to tell on you. And if you don't tell it, or your microphone, or what, everything that's connected to the internet, your even your wireless router, those things are, the router actually does a lot of. I think if you got into the routers in every business and every house, that'd be like a whole. You'd have everyone's home layout. You'd have every building's layout. I mean, that's how they do it. That's how they do these things already. They get into that. They know what's happening. And
That's how Netanyahu could target journalists.
yeah.
That's
Did
how
you
he could do it, was through their phones. He knew where they were. And
Yep.
he knew when they were when it would be the most impactful.
Yep.
So that's that. So taking out a whole building filled with people just to get that one journalist so they can stop the news.
Yep. And did you see too that Israel is building the next iPhone chip? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm not getting it. I'm trying to get rid of, I want a China phone.
Yeah.
At this
Yeah.
point, I don't even care if China spies on me. Like, I
I'll
don't,
give it to them. I put Red Note still on my phone. I still get
I
those
know.
updates.
I know. I'm like, whatever. And then the other thing people don't realize is in this mass surveillance, in all of this data center comes digital pricing. And so this is a big thing that's happening, especially in Walmart. Walmart is going to digital pricing and your prices change. So somehow those little tag can identify your face, and then they run you through face recognition and they're able to identify your income. And so then they know exactly how much you would be willing to pay for something.
Yep.
I watched one where this lady was just in tears. She's a white middle class lady. She was been posting about things and her concerns about digital marketing. And she found a pair of shoes for her daughter because they're trying to lower their budget and stuff because they are really feeling all of this stuff and trying to figure out how they're going to, make it and not lose their home and stuff. And so Walmart had a pair of shoes for $3 on clearance. And when she went to go pay for those, it went up to $18.99. And so then she had a big episode at Walmart. And what they found out it depended on the location. So when she was standing anywhere else within the store, it read the chip or whatever read $18.99. It was only right there in front of where the clearance sign for $3 was, where it was $3. And
Wow.
then they laughed at her and thought made her feel even worse because she was throwing a hissy fit over the discounted price from $18.99 to $3. Like it's just whatever money, just pay it or whatever like that, trying to shame her. And then she went to another store to go get her groceries. And then she went to go pay for her groceries and hear the same thing. So all of the vegetables, because the sign said that they were like 3 for $2.99, and so she got them and she went to go pay, and here they were ringing up like $18.90 or $15.99 or $15.69 each, and she's like, what? And then I guess it wasn't, so they said, you got the organic kind. And she said, what do you mean? I got them off that display table that says that. And here, that's what they were doing. They were mixing the organic in with the regular pricing. And so it was just like that. She just had a breakdown and just crying. I was watching that. I'm like, well, I'd be mad too. I'd be in the same situation. I'd be doing, and my son would be going, oh my God, my mom, my daughter would be going, my grandchildren, and even Jimmy would be saying, oh my God, just pay for it. Let's move on. But I'd be, no, this is a principle.
That's right. That's right. And they're ripping us off so much. Walmart even, Walmart is funding the No Kings. One of the Walmart people is funding the No Kings marches. Like they don't want a king, but they sure want to rip the heck out of us all the time. Like they don't want to have happy employees. They pay them so that they can still get food stamps. And like that's ridiculous. Like it's ridiculous that we just put up with whatever these big corporations say. And the whole idea of development at any cost is bad. And that's what created America, right? Development at any cost. Who cares who was there? Those guys in Europe needed the money and the resources that they were going to steal from us. And that's the idea, is that development at all cost. And there is a cost. And if you think that there's not, and trust me, a lot of people, even our people that do this politics or what, they will willingly sacrifice any community to do anything. And that's just the way we think here in America. And so like, as and I think it's the why we're in the situation that we're in, and it's hopefully going to be the end of it. I am not hoping that America makes another 250 years. I'm hoping that we get an opportunity to create what America could be, where Black people are included, where Indigenous people are included, where we get reparations. We need reparations for the Black people need reparations for slavery. Those companies, J.P. Morgan held slaves. All of those people that are these companies that are still in business, that are still profiting, had slaves. And that means those slaves made their businesses. And so they deserve lifelong reparations, I do believe. And us too, as Indigenous people, there's a reason why we're the poorest people in the country, but all the gold came out of the Black Hills. Like we didn't get none of that gold. And we deserve it, and it's ours, and they should pay reparations for what they stole. But they won't, because they don't take accountability. They just want to hide their heads in the ground, in the sand, and pretend like they don't even see the dying kids in Gaza. They don't see the dying kids in Congo. They can't see. They got no eyes. They got no ears. They can't hear nothing. All they can do is consume.
Yeah. All right. So we're up. And
okay.
So you guys all be safe. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. As Chas said earlier, how Memorial Day came to be. And we do it now to honor those who have passed, made the sacrifice for our freedoms. And so I hope you guys all have a good Memorial Day. I hope you guys are all safe. And we'll see you next Sunday.
You, Meg. Thank